Welcome back to Unplugged. It's been a little while between drinks, but we are returning to the airwaves after a victory. It is a much more positive week after a win. Phil is joining us again. Phil Daladakis, filling in for Darren Parkin, who's a late scratching for tonight. Phil, you and I watched the game on Saturday, and H, you and I drank after the game on Saturday. So had some good times with both of you. But H, we'll start with you. It's a different feeling after a win, isn't it?
Yeah. It was a win we had to have. Well, you could say about 23 games a year. It's a win you have to have, but it puts us back on, I guess, a bit of a target for what our season was. We dropped that on the weekend, and yeah, you pretty much go, we're done. That's it. We're done. We're cooked. But we brought in, how many players was it last week? We brought back into the team. King came back in. Dougal comes back in. Hayes comes back in. We look at that and go, okay, we've tried these players against the team that we should be beating, and it's a great week for them to return. And yeah, apart from probably King, who seemed to struggle a bit. As I've said to a few people, it's hard to actually do anything when someone's literally piggybacking you in the square the entire game. The way he gets manhandled in the goal square is just unbelievable at times. But yeah, he just seemed to struggle a little bit. His best work was almost when he just went up a bit higher up the ground, and he took a really nice contested mark, about 65 out from goal at one point. He did a couple of good things around the ground, but it just seemed to be when he was right down close, he struggled. But as I said, overall, a few good inclusions. You go, great, they're back, they're playing well. Obviously, Mason Wood's one, the other one I forgot, but yeah, he came back firing. You can see how much we missed him all these weeks. It's just he leaves a huge hole when he doesn't play for us, and yeah, it was just great to see. They all came back. They got through the game. That's the main thing. And yeah, we got the result. And we didn't beat them by 15 goals. We didn't beat them by, luckily, a couple of points like last year. It was a solid win. As I pointed out to a few people, we were actually the top scoring team this round, which, when was the last time that ever happened? It's been a while since we've been the best scoring team of a round. And yeah, as I said, 4 points. And yeah, we look forward to next week and hopefully can back it up again.
Now, Phil, as I mentioned, first time this year, I think that we've watched a game together. We've done it a fair bit in the past, but first time for this season. The first half on the weekend was a little dicey, and there were some moments I think that both of us were getting a little, worried might be too strong a word, but concerned might be the right one. But they did turn it around somewhat.
Yeah, they did. And certainly the first 10 minutes kind of seemed to be like the other two games we won, where the opposition has to get out to a 3-goal lead before we decide to actually start playing. So, if there's an area again for the coaching group to be working on, it would certainly be making sure that we're the ones that get off to a healthy start. But at the same time, that perseverance and application is something that we should all admire. And of course, we've seen that in or bar the game against the Western Bulldogs. We've seen that where the boys have played out right till the end. And, I still think that they're good signs for a relatively young list. We've discussed that quite a lot previously, so I won't go into it again. But I think there's a lot of upside. And the one thing I did say to you, Nick, and it's something that you've said previously on the pod, there is a lot of football analysis on TV, on radio, and on Foxtel on pay-per-view. And it seems that the more that the commentators and the analysts say, the more rubbish that comes out of their mouth. Port Adelaide have some key injuries to some of their players. Other players have come in underdone. all of a sudden they're the worst team in the top 8. St Kilda loses 4 games by less than 8 points or 8 points or less. And we've gone backwards at a rate of knots from last year without understanding which of the players that were out and what structure it left us with. And now, of course, they're writing off Geelong because Geelong had a loss to Melbourne. and so I think that we've never had more media analysis for football, and we've never been more poorly served by it. And I thank God for pods like ours to actually bring some actual genuine understanding of what's happening in at least our team and the game back to the footy fans and the public.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, we decided to do this pod 6 years ago, isn't it? In that I think, back then it was, Richo had just been sacked, and there was a lot of rhetoric, there was a lot of crap in the media, and there had been for a while about our footy club. And I think it was important for us at that point to come in and talk about our footy club from the perspective of fans and, people that watch this team week in, week out and love this team and are passionate about this team and care about the team, to actually come in with a different perspective than just your basic, average, everyday media, clickbaity type rhetoric. But no, that's a great point, Phil, and I don't disagree with you on that. Now, it has been a little while since we had a win, and so I want to play a little bit of a game with you guys, and dropping this on you a little bit out of the blue because we've never done this before. But I'm gonna say something, and I want to get a short response, 1 word, 5 words, whatever, short sentence in response. What comes to mind when I say these words or these phrases? So, H, I'm going to start with you. Darcy Wilson.
Jet.
Phil?
Jet.
H. Jack Hayes.
Great comeback.
You there? Okay, who's dropped out? H, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, so Phil's dropped out.
Turn the hearing aids
I've got
up.
you now. I lost you.
So you can hear me now? Okay. Phil, Jack Hayes.
If Darcy Wilson's a jet, he's a bomber.
A good bomber, I hope, not a red and black bomber.
No, the plane.
Yeah.
Huge for us.
H. Sinclair in the middle.
Love it.
Phil, Sinclair in the middle.
Need it.
H. Max King and Mateus Filippo's form.
Well below where they should be. But Mateus showed a little bit more on the weekend, though. That break through that pack was very nice, but we know he's got more.
Philip, Max King and Mateus Filippo.
Room for improvement, but look, I've been so economical with my other words. I'm going to take a few here. With Max King in particular, I think he's somebody that needs that continuity, continuity of games. And I think what we saw was a guy coming back probably quite underdone. I suspect that if we'd had a full complement, that he probably would have had another 1 or 2 weeks to prepare himself rather than being rushed back in. And so, from my perspective, I think there's a lot of upside for him. I think Mateus, I know people say second year blues and all of that, but the fact of the matter is that he's still finding his game. And you see a lot of players come out of the blocks in their first season. And then what happens is the opposition gives them quite a lot more attention in terms of studying what they do, where they move, left preference, right preference, can go either way. And so it's going to make it more challenging for him, but that's part of his football education. So in a word, buoyant. There you go. Buoyant.
Very diplomatically answered, I think, from both of you guys. So I think that was a good little word game, which I wouldn't mind doing every now and then on the show. Now, I wanted to ask you guys about something important that we haven't seen from this footy club in quite a while, and I do feel like this trend is starting to improve for us. But goals from the midfield. So often we've been reliant on our key forwards, whether they're big, tall, or small, but our key forward players hit the scoreboard and make the difference, to kick a winning score, right? But what we saw on the weekend, and I know it's only North Melbourne, I get it, but I do feel like part of our game plan is for our midfielders and our wingmen to hit the scoreboard. This week we had 10 of our 15 goals came from midfielders, 11 if you count Rowan Marshall as a midfielder. That is so important, especially when you're not getting your regular output from guys like King, Philippou, Owens to some extent, who hasn't been the same dynamic forward that we saw last year. But I feel like getting scores from the middle just takes the pressure off those forwards week in, week out to such an extent that we can get by when a couple of guys are out of form. When a couple of guys are out of form and we're not able to fill those gaps, and we haven't, because we haven't had the personnel, right? We've been scraping the bottom of the barrel just to field a team some weeks this season. But when we've got our key players in key positions winning the ball and hitting the scoreboard, we just look like a much better football team. And again, the caveat is that it was only North Melbourne. But as we saw for them early, when their midfielders hit the scoreboard too, they look like a pretty good footy team. H?
I mean, how many times have we seen that goal from Hill that he did kick, running into the 50, gets around the player? How many times have we then seen him try to chip it to someone and kicked it over their head or bounce in front of them or whatever? He did exactly what he should do. Kick the goal. We have said, why are these players getting to 40, 45 out and trying to hit a target? They can all kick 50 meters. They can all kick the goal from there. Hopefully they've been pulled up on that a few times and been told, you should have just kicked the goal. You should have just had a shot. But you get into that position. That is 40 out directly in front. It's almost one of the best positions in the ground, excluding being dead in front of the goal in the goal square. It's a great position to have a shot from. I mean, one, you're shanking it and falls short. You generally got someone in the goal square. Like, there'll be a contest or it'll be whatever. But, I mean, you have a cracker there and you miss as well. You're like, oh, it's fair enough. You had a go at it. It's these ones where they chip and miss a target and the ball turns over and goes the other way that you get so frustrated about. But I was just having a look. We've had 14 players on the weekend have a shot at goal and score. North had 7. We had a lot of, I guess, players who took an opportunity, who took the shot. We saw Josh Battle launch from outside 50, almost kick the first goal of the game. Windhager probably should have kicked that one as well. I mean, but he made the play. He got through to players. He got there and he deserved a goal for how well he did. It was just the finishing wasn't fantastic, but that's what we want them doing. It's exactly what they need to be doing. If they get in there, take those shots every time. We're not going to. We're going to get more frustrated, as I was saying, kicking a stupid little kick to someone and missing them completely. So it's great to see us actually have a crack at it this week.
Now, Phil, I wanted to ask you about this one, and I saved this one for you because I know in general how you feel about it. But this year we've seen very good performances, probably career best performances from Josh Battle in defence. Cal Wilkie probably hasn't been as dominant as he has been in past years, but he's still been pretty good. And most weeks, he's in our best 5 or 6 players, except for one big game that we don't need to talk about anymore. Dougal Howard, I know how you feel about Dougal Howard, but what did you make of his performance on the weekend?
I thought it was a pretty strong performance from the young man. Look, there's no doubt that at times he's a bit of a whipping boy for the St Kilda fan base, but that's because Dougal does Dougal things.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are going to be critical when he deserves it, they should also be prepared to put their hand up and praise him when he deserves it. And I thought his game was as close to textbook perfect for a backman that he played. He marked everything that came his way. He provided strong intercept marks. He on a number of occasions linked up the play. I thought it was a really strong performance from him at the right time. Now, again, North had a dearth of talls in the back line, but nevertheless, he was still on North's best forward, and I was going to say best forward, and probably one of the top 5 forwards in the league. I reckon Larky deserves that mantle, and he was still able to beat him on the day. Now, I know he got a couple of goals late in junk time, but nevertheless, I thought Dougal walked away with those points. So credit to him, and I think hopefully that gives him a lot of confidence for games to come.
Yeah, that first goal he got, that was not a free kick. It's not a free kick. I mean, he played that beautifully. I mean, our forwards do that. We'd be going, "Oh, Van, great work. You suck the umpire in." I mean, it's not a free kick, but yeah, he'd beaten him until the second half of the last quarter when he actually did something. So yeah, I mean, that's as good of effort and good a game as you want from him. I mean, usually it's these mistakes and clangers and things that people pick on, and I looked and I was seeing before that 3/4 of the team either had as many or more clangers than he did on the day. I mean, he turned it over twice in the match. But yeah, we are some of our best players on the day had like 5 and 6 clangers. So he's done his job and played well. So yeah, there's nothing more you could ask on the day.
No, I think you said it, Phil. When Dougal has his detractors because he does Dougal things, and we've spoken about that a number of times on this show. Some of the Space Cadet decisions that he can make sometimes, but I thought he did everything that he was asked to do. And I think we spoke about it last week, that when Dougal Howard's playing pretty good football, we play pretty good football. We're a much better team with a good Dougal Howard in it than without. And he's a very, very good defender when he concentrates on those simple things and doing his job and just not trying to do too much. And I think we saw that. On the weekend. And if he can get back to anything even resembling his best form over the second half of this season, then I think that back six, which has been a pretty solid defensive six or defensive unit over the last 2 or 3 years, just gets even better again. So really promising signs from him, and hopefully he can just continue to take steps to get back to that player that he was when he came to us, and those first couple of years that he was with us, because he's one of the best fullbacks in the competition. He was a leader. And if he can get back to that sort of role, then I think we're in a pretty good spot. Before we wrap up this game with votes and things, just a reminder that if you do like the show, we'd love you to give us a rating and a review wherever you listen, whether that be iTunes or Spotify or Facebook or whatever it is, any of the other podcast platforms. Hopefully 5 stars, but even if not 5, then tell us why, so that hopefully we can get better. And obviously we're on all the socials: Facebook, Twitter, X, TikTok, Instagram, everything, and of course YouTube. If you do want to watch this episode or any of our interviews, etc., you can watch a lot of those on our YouTube channel. So go to that, hit subscribe. Now, to wrap up that game, the votes, I might just quickly read out Darren's votes, given he's not here, but he gave singles to Naz, Josh Battle, Jack Hayes, Dougal Howard, and Bradley Hill. 2 votes to Darcy Wilson and 3 votes to Jack Sinclair. Phil, how did you go this week?
1 vote, Jack Hayes. Sorry, I just had to do that. 3 votes, Jack Sinclair. 3 votes, sorry, okay, Windhager, and 3 votes, young Darcy Wilson. What a performance. I said just before we jumped on air that I watched the replay and I thought Windhager was huge. Like I noticed him at the ground, but when I watched the replay, he was in everything probably for the first 2.5, nearly 3 quarters. Eased up a little in the last, but that's okay. And Hill was also equally huge. I just thought that the games from Sinclair, Wilson, and Windy were so big collectively that they deserved they needed to be given 3 votes each, which is why Hayes was left with just the one. And apologies to Bradley Hill, who just I think is, well, at least at St Kilda, he's in career best form.
H, how did your votes pan out this week?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier too, well, I struggled to fit as many players in as I'd want to. And I didn't really want to go down the path of giving 10 ones because there's players that deserved more. There was also players that didn't deserve not to get a vote at all, which was, it made it quite hard this week. But, gave 1 vote to Hayes, great return. Brad Hill, as Phil was saying, great game. Naz, he's finding it again. Gave us plenty of service out of the back line again. Marshall, big in the middle, big when he went out forward. Played a great game, and then gave 2s. Again, as Phil said, Windhager, massive. Deserved 3 or 4 on another week if there was not really anyone else that came along with him. Darcy Wilson, probably in the same boat. And Jack Sinclair. They all deserve probably 3-4 votes each. It's just that all had great games, all had an outstanding performance. If they were, as I was saying, if they were the only ones that stood up, they would have easily got that sort of result. But yeah, it was just it makes it a little bit hard to spread them out sometimes when we've given ourselves more votes now. But yeah, it was a tough one because there's still a few players I probably might have thought about giving another one too.
It's a good problem to have, isn't it, when you've got too many players to fit in the votes? And I agree. I think, like both of you, there were a bunch of guys that could have gotten votes that I just couldn't fit in this week. There's a bunch of apologies. But I gave singles to Josh Battle, Rowan Marshall, Jack Steele, Jack Hayes, and Marcus Windhager. Like you said, H, Windhager any other week would have gotten 2 or 3. I thought he was fantastic, but just not quite at the same level as Jack Sinclair, who I gave 2. And again, any other week he could have gotten 3 or 4. But I thought that he was just shaded by Darcy Wilson, who I gave 3 votes, who just never stops running. And it is so impressive for a kid of his age and his experience that A, he doesn't stop running. B, he puts his body on the line time after time. C, his skills are pretty good. And so often we see players that are drafted that can run have shocking skills, and you're either one or the other. You're a footballer or an athlete, and generally not both. I think we've gotten a really good one with Darcy Wilson, and D, he hits the scoreboard. We spoke earlier about midfielders and wingmen hitting the scoreboard, and he's done it. He's done it plenty this season already, and I guess in a weird quirk, I feel like his worst game of the season so far was the one that he got the Rising Star nomination. I don't know if you guys have any context.
He wasn't bad that day either.
He wasn't bad that day, but it was probably his least impactful game that week. But I guess to wrap up this game, any final thoughts on this one from you guys?
Well, it's the first game where I've given votes, and if we'd had to do the old 3, 2, and 1, I would have genuinely been torn about who got the 1, who got the 2, and who got the 3. We've all named Sinclair, Wilson, and Windhager as being in the top 3. And the only one that didn't, of course, was Dash, who's not with us tonight. But, as you said, Nick, it's a great problem to have.
Well, as we wrap up this game, we have a special guest this week. Obviously, normally Darren would jump on this bit, but our special guest this week played 77 games for the Saints through the mid to late 70s, I should say, into the early 80s, but is more well known internationally through another sport. We speak of Bill Mildenhall, and we'll get to him very shortly.